Good evening. How's everybody's week been? Give it a few minutes to see people joining. Today, what I want to cover is a bunch of the comments and questions I've had from members of the community around the basics of flying in Flight Simulator 2024 and how to complete a successful flight using a bunch of the autopilot features. So we'll go quite slowly, at least at the start of the stream, whilst we cover everything for the first time. And then once we've completed the first flight, we might go a bit faster after that. Good evening, Limited Void, how you doing? So I am going to take it from the very beginning of a flight. We're in free flight mode, and I'm going to use the 172 because that's what most people will have, if everybody will have, when you start your career or start flying in 2024. So we will treat this as a bit of a ground school thing. We're going to be flying in the first flight from Edinburgh to Glasgow. So these are two airports relatively close to me in Scotland. And so I've put the departure in as Edinburgh and the arrival as Glasgow. I've also chosen a parking ramp to start. I don't want to start on the runway because I want to start cold and dark. This is not going to be a complete cold and dark tutorial today. This is very much going to be a survival guide, how to successfully complete a flight. So we will be using things like the auto start engine feature of 2024. We're flying into Glasgow, and we do want to cover things like autopilot. So if we bring up the electronic flight book now, we'll take a look at our flight plan. You can see what it's done is it's got us departing Edinburgh, straight out, which is fine, and then there's really a VFR approach into Glasgow, which would be fine in today's weather, but we don't want to do that, right? We want to show you how to use ILS. So the first thing we want to do is check the information in Glasgow Airport, so we'll hit the little eye next to Glasgow. Let's go over and check the runways. It's saying runway 5 is recommended, and runway 5 does have an ILS attached to it. Perfect. So, we'll go back to our flight plan. We'll change it to runway 5. And what we'll say is, so now, sorry, I should go slower than that. So now for the approach procedure, we'll go and click change. We want to make sure that we go through Gao. So Gao is the airport itself. What will happen here is we'll fly over the airport itself, we'll do a bit of a teardrop, we'll loop back, and then we'll join the ILS coming into runway 5. So once I've selected Gao and ILS 5, we'll change procedure. That's what I'm expecting to get coming in. And typically the arrival into Glasgow is also going to be via Perth, so let's set the Perth arrival as well. And this is what you would expect to see. So if we go back to the flight plan now, and see it on the map, you can see what's actually going to happen, because this is how we would fly if we were flying an IFR flight path. So we're not going to fly directly into Glasgow, which is what you would expect to do. We'll take off from Edinburgh, we'll fly up to Perth, we'll join and we'll do the Perth approach, and then the ILS on 05 via the Gao transition. So that's us all set up. Let's file that flight plan with ATC, send through it to avionics. We will not fly at flight level 180, that doesn't make much sense in the Cessna. Something like 6,000 feet is probably going to be fine. So again, we'll send that to ATC and avionics. And let's load up, do some pre-flight checks. Your single throttle should work just fine on a twin engine plane, unless you're expecting or trying to simulate a single engine outage, at which point you might have a bit of trouble. But if you just set the throttle and you're expecting to fly with both engines or multiple engines all running fine, there's no need to worry about that. It'll work fine. I have just realised it has chosen real world weather. Let me see if I can fix that. because that's not particularly great for a tutorial. So let's try to bring it to daylight. There we go. So let's cover that before we start then. Let's do some basic controls that I've mapped. So in the controls menu, if you look at my flight stick, you'll see I've got custom controls for my Thrustmaster. So if I search by input, my throttle is on the joystick L axis. So that's my throttle axis here. And again, I only have the single stick. So if you map your throttle axis to your joystick axis that you want for the throttle, that will work for all engines, doesn't matter how many the plane has. Searching by input, so again, if I push my stick to the left for the ailerons, then that's mapped that way, and if I pull the stick back and forward for the elevators, then that's mapped on the y-axis. Other important things I have mapped on the buttons on the side of my throttle. At the top, I have decreasing flaps by stages. Progressively down to number 6, I have increased flaps, and below that I have my parking brakes. Ignore the rest of these things, they won't actually trigger. Right at the bottom here, I have my landing gear mapped, and then switching to the back of my throttle now, there's a sort of slider axis left-right, so that's my rudder, which I have mapped. I've also mapped that to the nose wheel steering axis for the larger aircraft. And then the top button on the back, I have my toggle reverse thrust for aircraft that have reverse thrust. And then the second button on the back, I have for arming my spoilers, again for the likes of the 737 MAX, and for toggling the grapple hook. On the main stick itself, at the top button, I have the elevator trim nose up, and then the secondary button is obviously trim nose down. My main trigger I've mapped for brakes, and the fire button at the top is my validate and quick reply. So when you're going through the missions, you'll see things like responding to ATC or making your call for taxi clearance, things like that. I have that mapped to the button on the top of my joystick. Further to that, I have my Stream Deck, and in my Stream Deck I have mapped flight level change, toga, auto throttle, and a few other settings in there. So that's the basic mapping that I've gone with. You can map whatever works for you. So let us resume. So typically before any flight in Flight Sim 2024, they will want you to remove a bunch of covers. Same with the engine cover, your static port cover, and your pitot at the absolute minimum, and then the chocks. You can then go around and do sort of checks on the aircraft to see how it's doing, so you can kind of hover over the tires and it will go in a condition for you. So if you were to own this aircraft in, say, a company, and your tires or your brakes were not looking great, you might want to go back into maintenance and fix those before you take off. We are in free flight, so I'm expecting everything to be absolutely fine. So let's get in the aircraft. Let's not waste too much time doing pre-flight checks. Now, as I said, I'm not doing a full code and start tutorial here, so if you press Control and E once you get into the aircraft, if you're using a keyboard, or I've got a button mapped for this, then what should happen is that the aircraft should start up. There we go. So that will go through the kind of engine start procedure for you. And then let's talk about the autopilot and the controls we have in front of us before we do anything else. So if we get the camera, we'll go and have a look at some of these instrument views. So first thing I would always do is pretty much come to the map screen and just hit the soft key in the bottom right just to make sure that we can see what's on the screen there. Then coming to the primary flight display, there's a few things you want to know about this display here. So you have your down the right hand side, you can control your comms, and so if you change frequencies and you want to do it manually, you can do that there. Then you can change your barometric pressure. So this is your 2992. Typically in the EU we use hectopascals, which you can change. Now I've not remembered how to do this, but let me see if I can figure it out whilst we're on here. There is a way of doing it. Yes, there we go. Okay, so if you go to PFD output, and then you go to Alt Units, and then you switch to HPA, that will change your pressure to hectopascals, and that can be really useful when flying in Europe, because that's the pressure they will give you. They won't give it to you in inches of mercury, they'll give it to you in hectopascals. The next thing that's important to know is if you look at the button below CDI, if you click on this, you'll see that the line going through the sort of circle or compass in the middle of the flight display changed to localizer 1, or green, L1. Click it again, it goes to localizer 2. If you click it again, it goes to GPS. So if you're having problems with your aircraft not following the GPS flight plan, you need to make sure that the CDI is set to select and capture the GPS, that it's not set for the localizer. So that's quite a common thing, right? People go, I'm not capturing my navigation, the plane's doing something I didn't expect it to. It's because if you want to follow, so I just hit tab there to bring this up, if you want to follow the flight plan that you've got here, you need to make sure that this CDI is set to GPS. Okay, now we can check that the aircraft has loaded in the flight plan in a couple of ways. First thing you might want to just do is look at the map and make sure you've got a pink line coming out from where you are, which we do. But further to that, we want to come down on the right hand side and hit this button that has FPL written on it, flight plan. And you can see here that we're going to go Perth, Grace, Stira, and then into the ILS for runway 5. So we'll go GAU, which is the initial approach fix, and then through IU4, through over to the final approach fix, or we'll capture the ILS at the final approach fix, and then we'll come down to runway 5. It's also put in my missed approach, which takes us back over to GAU. Now at any point in the flight plan, so you can see I'm turning the big knob under FMS, the bottom right of the primary flight display, to move it up and down on here. At any point during the flight plan, if you wanted to go direct to a point and not go through every single stage, you can select a stage, and there's a little button that has looks like a D with an arrow through it. Then this is your direct to button. So you can select the thing you want, hit direct to, and then what it'll do is it puts it in the top there, and then you can go to enter, and then if you were to activate, it would go ahead and activate direct to there, and immediately it will fly you to that point in your flight plan, and the plane will start to turn. Now I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to come out of that and go back to my flight plan, make sure we're going to Perth, which is fine. Okie doke, now we are flying ILS into Glasgow, so we're going to want to make sure that we have tuned the nav1 to the ILS for runway 05. So how do we do that? We'll bring up the EFB by hitting tab. Let's go hit destination airport, the little I next to that, and runway 5 will expand it, because it won't typically be expanded, so you click on runways, expand runway 5, and the ILS frequency will be there for you at the bottom. Now this is where we do need to select localizer 1 on the CDI, and then we want to turn the knobs on the top left, or near the top left of the primary flight display, to make that number that's in the blue box match these numbers here. Now it just so happens that it does, but let's say it didn't, right? You can see if I move this up and down, the small knob changes the second set of numbers, and the big knob changes the first set of numbers, right? So we want to change this to 110.1, which we have there. And then there's a little switch button above there, frequency swap. If you hit that, that makes 110.1 active. So that's us just set up, before you even got off the ground, we're set up to capture the ILS in terms of the frequency, right? Which is always good to get there ahead of time. Okay, so now the next thing I would do in pre-flight is I would start going, okay, I want to turn on nav, so I want to arm the nav. And again, the first thing I saw there, right, was it went to lock and roll. That to me was like, why doesn't that say GPS, right? Well, as we talked about, we haven't changed CDI back. So I went to CDI lock 1 so that I could change the nav frequency for the ILS. Now if I hit CDI twice again, you'll then see if I hit nav, it turned to GPS. So at the top there of the flight display, GPS has now been activated, which is great. Okay, and so now what we want to do is set our cruising altitude. Everything before we even got off the ground, right? So on the bottom left of the navigation display, There's this altitude spinner, which if you grab the big knob, that'll put up thousands, and then the little knob is your hundreds of feet. So we're going to cruise at about 5,000 feet, I think we said. So I've set that. I am going to use flight level change today, so we won't set a rate of climb right now, but I will show you how to do that during the flight, and then we can obviously change back to flight level change later on. So with that, I am set up and nearly ready to go. The next thing you might want to do if you want to be a bit of a purist, although you don't necessarily have to do this, is turn on your lights. So strobe light, nav light, taxi light and beacon, and then once we finish taxiing, as we cross onto the runway, we turn on the landing lights, right? But that's more of a puristy thing. You don't necessarily need to do that. Put your flaps down to the first stage, so I just hit the second button on my stick here, but the flap knob is there as well. You can grab it and put it down one lever if you want. Typically, most aircraft you're going to take off with the flaps in at least the first stage. That's just good practice. Okay, so let's get taxied out to the runway. So typically you would tune ground, we'll request IFR clearance.
Easy 6565,
Oh, somebody else is coming in.
Easy 6565, continue taxi.
Okay. So I'll go to the outside view and clean this up a little bit just now. See where I'm at. Okay, I've not got pushback. So I'll release the parking brake, which is the bottom one there for me. Put a bit of throttle in. And I'm now holding the left rudder all the way to the left, which will help us start to turn around. Now if we don't turn as tightly as we might want to, that's just because the aircraft doesn't have a very great turning angle. You can map left and right kind of selective braking as well to try and make yourself turn a little bit faster, but yeah, turning is just not elegant in the sim at all.
KLM 9024 is cleared to Schiphol Airport. As filed, expect runway 06, maintain FL tree 60.
That's not me. That must be somebody else.
205 squawk 6 tree 1.
So I'm just going to taxi along here. So you don't want to taxi faster than 20 knots, especially in the career mode. So what you can do is, if you look at the top left of the map screen, you can see your ground speed in knots there. You don't want to go above 20 knots on the ground speed whilst you're taxiing, otherwise you'll get a pilot error.
755 when ready to taxi. Good day.
Edinburgh Ground KLM 9024 at General Aviation Parking Information Sierra. Request pushback.
KLM 9024 Edinburgh Ground. Pushback approved.
I might not bother too much with ATC today.
Edinburgh Ground KLM 924 requesting pushback.
Edinburgh Ground KLM 9024 no pushback tug is available to answer your request.
Because there's a bunch of other people that are on it, and it's just going to be annoying. So we would taxi round, and typically if you were in the career mode, which we're not, you would hold short here. There'd be a big blue box to hold short here. So we will hold short here. I'm not going to make a call to ATC. I am just going to check on it final, see that somebody just did a missed approach. So you want to check both ways. And if final and everything's clear, typically you'd make an ATC call. We're not going to do that today because this lesson is about capturing ILSs and using the autopilot. So let's get out onto the runway. Again, just checking that everything's clear on final before I do. And then once we're lined up on the runway, we'll go ahead and put in full throttle. Yeah, it's telling me I didn't get clearance, but I already said I wasn't going to. Right, 55 knots is rotate. So there we go, 55 knots. We start a gentle pull up. And then I'm sort of gently loosening or pushing the stick a little bit further forward. Once we hit VY on that primary flight display, I'm going to hit flight level change. So you'll see what happened there is, at the top of the primary flight display, FLC came up in 74 knots. So it captured the speed at which I was telling it I wanted it to do the flight level climb at. Okay, now I'm going to turn on autopilot. So, for those of you watching who don't have Stream Decks, autopilot button is down here, just on the left of the map display. Go and hit turn that on, and what will happen is the plane will now start immediately turning onto that GPS path and climbing at your flight level change speed, up to your designated altitude. So you're now hands off. Yeah? Plane's already flying, we're only 500 feet off the ground. So, we're actually flying into IFR conditions, which is actually quite nice, because this will help us to focus on the instruments that we're flying. Again, purists would have said to me, you didn't turn on the landing light, turn off the taxi light, right? We're not here to be purists, we're here to show you how to survive in a flight, not to do everything exactly by the book. So I've done that now, landing lights are on, taxi lights off. Coming into this weather, I would recommend turning on the pitot heat though, so again, I don't know if you saw that, but down here, there's a little green switch. Turn on the pitot heat. What that does is it heats up the instrument on the outside on the wing that gives you your indication of airspeed. As you're flying into clouds, there's a bigger risk that you're going to freeze the pitot tube, and then if that happens, you will not get an indicated airspeed anymore. What will happen is you'll either get no reading, or your reading will stick, and it won't move, and you'll think that you're flying faster than you are. So, if you're flying through cloud, I recommend just leaving the pitot heat on. Once you're in clear air, or coming into land, about 1,000 feet or less, turn it off because you want to have accurate speed readings for that. The next thing we want to concern ourselves with as we're taking off now is just taking the flaps out. So let's go ahead and take the flaps out. That just reduces our drag and will allow us to have a better rate of climb. So you'll see there we were climbing about 800 feet per minute. As soon as I take the flaps out, it went up to about 1100 feet per minute. One of the nice things about the flight level change mode versus setting a vertical speed that you are mandating, and there's benefits to both, but one of the benefits there is that it will prioritize airspeed over rate of climb. And the benefit to you as a pilot there is that the likelihood of you stalling is much less. If you prioritize rate of climb, it will let the airspeed drop and drop and drop and drop and drop, and then you could stall and fall out of the sky. If you prioritize airspeed, there's a lot less likelihood of that. It's not impossible, you can still get gusts of wind, things can still go bad, but you're going to have much better time. Now, it came up there and warned me and said I hadn't sorted my mixture out, which is absolutely right, but we hadn't got there yet. Right, it's getting ahead of me. As you climb, especially in the 172, what you want to be doing is gently leaning out the mixture. So the mixture is this red lever here next to the throttle. So the black lever is the throttle and the red lever is your mixture. What does that do? Okay, so the mixture changes the ratio of air to fuel that's going into the engine. So as you climb, the density of air is dropping, and therefore actually the ratio of fuel to air increases, and that's not good. That can cause extra heat in the engine. It basically reduces the efficiency that the engine is running at. So to set this, you want to be looking over here at the top left of your map display where you can see your RPM, right? So where it says 2480 just now. I'll zoom in a little bit. Right, it's now saying 2500. Okay, so that's actually looking fine. I don't think the mixture's too bad right now. Anyway, if you keep an eye on that and then you gently pull out the mixture control, it should go up and then start to dip down. And so what you want to do is you want to pull it up until it starts to dip down, and then push it back in until it gets to further in, but just below the maximum RPM that it can get to. It's probably easier to explain. So if we pull it out gently, what we should see is there we go, 2510. Keep pulling gently. 2520. 2530. And then for 2520, it fell back down again, right? So we're going to push it back in till we get to 2530, and then a little bit further in. Right? It's going to be a little bit on the rich side of ideal mixture. Right, so that's the mixture set, and you have to continually do this as we climb up, but we're nearly at our cruising altitude anyway of 5,000 feet, so I will set it there. If you were climbing up to say 10,000 feet in, say the skydiving missions, then you'd be continually doing that to make sure that you can maintain your rate of climb. If you don't lean the mixture in the skydiving missions, you're probably not going to make it to 10,000 feet. So we'll level off, we'll see what airspeed we balance out at, and then I'll recheck the mixture. Because what we don't want to do is constantly run the aircraft at maximum throttle. Right? That's not good for the aircraft or anything. So bring that back a little bit. Typically around about 2400 is actually where you want the aircraft sitting in cruise. We will speed up the sim rate in a little bit, but right now we're kind of going through these things. So we've leveled off, we're sitting around about 100 knots, which is probably about right. Well, let's just check that mixture one more time. So I'm going to gently pull it out and see if it gives me any more. Nope, it dropped down. So it was sitting perfect. That's 2.4, 2.3, fine. And I see, so I went to 2.4 and then I pushed it in a little bit more to get to 2.430. And that is, that's where you want it to sit. Okay, so now we're in the cruise. We're in clear air, so we can turn off pitot heat. And essentially, we're good now until we get to Glasgow. So this is where we get to sim rate. Sim rate's controversial if you're in the Discord. Anyway, so if you hit Alt and the R key on your keyboard, that turns on sim rate. And then if you press Control and the plus or minus keys on your keyboard, each time you press this, it'll double or half the sim rate that you're using. So we're at 1 times just now. If I hit it, that's 2 times sim rate. That's going to be 4 times sim rate. And 4 times is typically the max you're going to get on for safe kind of flying on most aircraft in the sim. The PC-12 can go up to max sim rate without any problems. But quite a lot of planes, what they will start doing when you get into too fast a sim rate is they'll start bouncing up and down like a party bus. Hi, Kevin. Yes, you are absolutely right. I haven't been a flight instructor, but I have heard stories of student pilots trying to kill you. So, yeah, we thank you for your efforts. I am a qualified commercial pilot, so I've been through training. I've had plenty of flight instructors and mad respect for what they do. I'm just trying to do it on the sim to help people. I've had a lot of questions in the Discord and in my comments on my videos I've been releasing over the last couple of weeks about things like, I can't capture ILS, what am I doing wrong? Or I can't use the autopilot, what am I doing wrong? And I'm doing this flight just to help everybody out. So as I say, we're doing 4 times sim rate, and we're just kind of surfing the clouds right now. Now, ideally, we probably want to climb up a bit more. You wouldn't really want to force the plane to fly through these clouds. So what we can do, and I'll show you vertical speed. So let's go back to normal sim rate. Everything's going to feel really slow now. If you wanted to increase your, to climb above the clouds, let's grab that altitude knob again. Let's say we go 7,000. But instead of using flight level climb, or flight level change, what we'll do this time is we'll use the vertical speed. So let's go and take my camera back down so I can show you this. If we go to the instrument panel. So, to set a vertical speed manually, you can hit VS here, which is just on the left of the map display, and you'll see a little 0 appeared to the right of the 7,000 target altitude on the primary flight display. Okay, then you've got two buttons to the right of the VS. It says nose up and nose down. So as you hit nose up, what that will do is that will increase your rate of climb by 100 feet per minute every time you do that. So let's say we want to go climb at, say, 500 feet per minute, up to 7,000 feet. And that's all we had to do. So we spun the altitude knob up to 7,000, we hit VS, and we nosed up. Now as you can see, it's prioritizing the vertical speed now over the airspeed. So you can see the airspeed on the left of the primary flight display is now dropping. What I am going to do here, because we're in the climb, is we're going to set climb power. And we're going to put the power up to full for that, which will just minimize the amount of airspeed that we lose. Again, we don't want to sit in this configuration forever, but in the climb, that's how you would do it. This is why I personally prefer the flight level change mode these days, because especially when there's lots of things going on, it's one less thing to worry about when your airspeed is being controlled instead of the vertical speed. I don't mind climbing slower if it means I'm not going to stall. So the aircraft will climb out and then it will level out itself at 500 feet per minute. Once we do level out, I'll recheck the mixture just to make sure it's good. But as you can see, we're already getting above those clouds. Yes, that's a good call, Thomas. I've noticed that as well. So if you are flying any of the aircraft that have really bouncy experiences in SimRate, just to say there, so we have now hit the Perth waypoint on our flight plan, and so you can see the aircraft is now making its turns, heading over to, I believe it's Greece now is the next waypoint on our path. So the aircraft is making these turns to get itself on path, and I'm not doing that. Again, it's all flying that, and just make sure that your CDI is set to GPS for that to happen. So yes, I have noticed that if you are flying an aircraft that gets too bouncy in the sim rate, if you set a gentle plus or minus 100 feet per minute vertical speed, that balances it out. But then you are going to be, you're going to have to cancel your IFR following, otherwise they're going to tell you that you're not following the assigned altitude. But let's be honest, the ATC and the career mode's rubbish anyway. So we have reached, I'm going to slow this down a little bit again just so we can recheck that mixture. Show you our progress. So we took off from 2-4. We are now on the I'm going to get this right, arrival through Perth. And so that will take us in, and then once we get over Gao, we will then do the approach and capture the ILS into runway 05 in Glasgow. I say we're ignoring ATC for this flight. This is more just the controlling of the aircraft. So we're making good progress. As I say, if you want to solve those bouncy aircraft things, then yes, it's a good tip from Thomas. Just make sure you set a vertical speed of plus or minus 100 feet per minute. But you have to keep an eye on that to make sure that you don't hit the ground or get too far out of where you want to be. But it does work. Okay, so let's pull back a little bit because it's telling me my mixture's not set correctly. Well, first things first, I'm burning it too hot anyway. So let's bring it back to about 2400. And then we will have a look at our mixture. So again, gently coming out. There we go. Nah, it wasn't bad actually. Check that again. No, it's dropping too much. 2, 3, 4, 3. There. So 2, 3, 40 was the max we got, and then I pushed it a little bit more rich after that. This aircraft, I have just noticed actually, has defaulted itself to the left fuel tank. Now, we don't want that. Ideally what I should have done on takeoff is I should have set that to all in the middle. And because we've been on left for the flight so far, let's just set it to right to make sure that we're balancing out that fuel tanks. You can have a look at your fuel tank capacities if you look on the map display. If we follow along here, so the autopilot button, flight FD button, and then fuel quantity, you can see that left is considerably lower than right. That's because I forgot to set it to all. So what you should do before takeoff is set it to all and don't have to worry about this, but because I didn't, got ahead of myself, I'll set it to right, we'll let it balance out, and then we'll set it to all as that becomes closer. You should be checking this every 10 to 15 minutes if you were flying in real life. I've got something in my eye, I do apologise. Do I use the engine assist for temperature? No, I don't use any assists other than the only assist I use is rudder, because I just hate holding the rudder in all the time for these single engine pistons. Other than that, I use no assists in Flight Simulator. Try to keep it as close to real life as possible. But rudder assist I do use, I will admit to, because I just hate holding the rudder all the time. Engine assist for temperature on the PFD. No, I don't. Can't say I've ever needed to. But if you want to tell us in the comments how to, we can take a look at it. It's not been one that I would say is a requirement to successfully complete a flight. And what we're trying to cover in today's stream is how to successfully complete a flight, not how to do things absolutely perfectly. So I am running a fine line there. But we'll take a look at this. So you said on the MFD, hit the engine button. Okay. And then what? Hit lean. Okay. And assist. Okay. Here we go. We're all learning. Now lean it to peak. What's that gonna do? What? Do peak got to the highest temperature? Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay, so around about there, 61 I think was the highest we got to. Well, that's an interesting way to do it. Again, I had never seen that before. So that's useful. Thank you for that. In the aircraft that I've always flown, we've never had that. Put a little bit more power in, because we want to set about 2400. We don't want to be going too slow. Okay, we're waiting 10 seconds. Then hit assist twice. Oh, and then do it again. How are we getting on our flight plan? Okay. And then reaching to 30. So, okay, yeah, okay. So you're doing. I guess we're reaching to minus 30? Because my temperature went down when I reached it. That's an interesting one to play with. I need to start looking at my approach. Okay, so that was a little bit high. We'll set it 30-ish. It keeps running away from me. So give or take, that's about right. Well, that's really useful. Thank you for that. So that's probably the correct way to do it, using the assists on the aircraft. Sort of the cheat way that I've done. It will get you there if you want to get to your 10,000 feet. So, absolutely. Not absolutely. It's great that we can all learn from each other in the community. So we are now coming into our approach towards Glasgow. So we want to come down. Now I wonder if the maps will load. The map wasn't loading earlier. Sorry, the chart. The chart just decided it didn't want to load, which is really annoying because it would have been really nice to have the chart to run through. Maybe we'll try a career mode one next and see if it loads in there. Either way, I know the altitudes for Glasgow because I do it all the time. So we want to get down to 3,000 feet. So again, I'm using my Stream Deck when I should really be using the instruments. So we want to get down to about 3,000 feet now. Okay. And what we're essentially going to do is we're going to do a reverse flight level change now, right? So we're going to hit the FLC, and that's going to lock on to 98 knots, because I don't want to slow down as I'm descending, and then I'm going to pull the power back. And what that will do is that will set a rate of descent that will maintain that 98 knots on the approach. Now we will have to look at our mixture as we're coming down, but that's just something we have to constantly monitor, is that mixture rate. Now, we are coming down, so let's just stick the pitot heat on briefly just now. A good rule of thumb, if you can't get your charts open, is if you're roughly about 2,500 to 3,000 feet above the runway altitude at final approach fix, you're probably going to be able to capture the glide slope. So if you can't read the charts, or ATC is not helping you, or everything else has gone wrong, if you're roughly about 2,500 to 3,000 feet above runway altitude at final approach fix, you're pretty much going to capture the glide slope. Now, as you can see, we're flying most of this by looking at the instruments inside. So the fact that outside has been kind of switching between IFR and VFR doesn't really matter to us, because we're looking at our instruments as we're flying. If you are finding the stream useful, please do hit the like button. This is now my time to shill. Please do subscribe and all those good things. The channel did finally make YouTube partner this week, so I'm quite excited about that. And yeah, the support since 2024 has come out has been massive, so I appreciate everybody who has joined me and watched all the videos that I've been releasing. I hope they've been useful for you. So we take a outside look now, right? This is looking quite mucky. You wouldn't fly this approach if you're VFR. You would turn around and go somewhere nicer. But we are instrument rated pilots, right? We're going to fly this on the instruments, so it doesn't matter right now that we can't see outside. Looking at the primary flight display again, you can actually see there that the runway is showing on the in the ground, so you can see the runways underneath us. That's GAU. So as we get past GAU and we head over to IUU4 and IU107, we do want to come down to 2,400 feet to intercept the ILS, ideally for Glasgow. We have now reached our 3,000, so let's bring some power back in, and let's make sure that we'll just put the mixture full rich now, because we're coming in for the approach anyway, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect on the mixture there. So when you're coming into land, you want the mixture fully rich anyway, and you don't want to be thinking about that too much. So we're flying over Glasgow. It's telling me the mixture's wrong, but as I say, we're not looking for ideal mixture right now. We're coming in on our approach. So you can see Glasgow is a little bit mucky there, but you can see the PAPI lights. I'm not a huge fan of these blue boxes in Flight Sim 2024, if I'm entirely honest. I find that they kind of take away from some of the realism, but I understand that they're helpful for some people. So what's going to happen as we fly over GAU, which is the airport itself, is we're going to make a left turn onto the intercept for well, we'll get ourselves set up for the intercept for runway 05. So as we make that turn, we can get prepared. So we grab the altitude, and as I said, we want 2,400. Now again, I don't have a way of setting the local barometric pressure, right? So unless I was to speak to ATC and try and get them to give me a QNH, they're probably not going to give me anything. If we see, we'll tune Glasgow, see if they'll give us a QNH. So tune the tower. We will request a full stop landing.
Glasgow Tower Cessna Delta. 8 Oscar Juliet Oscar is 1 mile southwest 3,000 feet with Oscar to land.
Cessna Delta, 8 Oscar Juliet Oscar Glasgow Tower Airport is currently IFR. Request denied.
Yeah, she doesn't want me to land because I'm not IFR. We could I don't want IFR. Nah. Right. In another video, or as we get further through the stream, we'll do a full IFR thing using ATC. Right now, we will just assume that 2,400 is a safe altitude. So we want to be down at 2,400. So again, what we can do is we can hit flight level change, put the power back a little bit, and let's bring ourselves down to 2,400 in anticipation of capturing the glide slope. So you're following our flight plan here on the EFB on the side. We've overflown the runway, we've made a left turn. We're coming out towards IU 107. We'll make a right turn over to IU 103, and somewhere between IU 103 and IU U73 we will capture the localizer and glide path, and I will show you that. So we don't want to arm that too early. And so the way I know that we're kind of at the right altitude is I've landed at this airport many times, but you can go into the EFB, go into your flight plan, choose Glasgow, and then you can see the elevation. So that's the second one from the bottom, 23 feet. So as I say, if you're about 2,500 to 3,000 feet above the elevation of the runway, then you are, for most airports, you're good to capture the ILS, right? Again, this is a survival guide, it's not a perfection guide for how you would do it in real life. This is how you just do it in the sim. I have not got any flaps in yet, so we can maintain a decent speed. Let's take a look outside, see how the weather's doing. Yeah, so it's IFR, which actually is really cool, because it's nice to have IFR when you're showing how to use the instruments on the approach. Let's go and get our camera now back to the pilot mode. And again, you can see here now, if I was looking here, it's a little bit concerning, right? I'm outside, I can't see anything left and right. So you want to, in these circumstances, just focus on your instruments, right? Trust your instruments. Remember your training and you will make it back alive. As they say. Points if you get that reference. So, we are at 2,400, which matches our flight plan. And we're about to make our right turn. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate the like and subscribe. Okay, it's taking a wide turn on this one. It is making it. It is going to UU 103. We can see this if you look at the top of the primary flight display. It's going 107 to UU 103. For some reason, it's decided it's going to make the shallowest of turns to do that, but it's fine, it will do that. Oh no, Ziggy, did you get the update? Has it come back since the update, or is it just not working for you? I'd hate to suggest uninstalling and reinstalling, but at least it's not as big as 2020 for having to try that. Okay. So. Oh. I am sorry to hear that. So as we are coming to approach UU 103, this is where the fun begins. So double check, right? Our nav1 is set to 110.10. You can see it's indicated as IUU, means it's picked up the ILS. Now what you want to do is hit this button here, just on the left of the map screen. It says APR. Okay. Now you'll see at the top of the primary flight display, you'll see a white LOC that's just turned green and started flashing. So that's the localizer. That's now going to keep us centered up on the runway. And then to the right, you'll see AP Alt 2400 feet and then a white GS for glide slope. The glide slope we'll capture in a second. If you look just to the left of the altitude ribbon, you can see a green diamond coming down from the top. Once that green diamond hits the middle, it will capture the glide slope and the aircraft will start descending for us down towards the runway. So that's how you capture, there we go, glide slope's flashing green, we've captured it, and now the aircraft is taking us on the descent down to the runway. So this is when I'm going to start pulling the power back. Into that flap range and start getting configured for my landing. So that's how you capture a localizer, or an ILS, right? You make sure the frequency is tuned. You make sure you're about 2,500 to 3,000 feet above the runway at final approach fix, and then you hit the APR button, or APPR on some aircraft, and then wait. Make sure the diamond's coming down from the top. If the diamond is below halfway, you've probably gone too close. So you'll have to either descend manually or do the missed approach and come back for it again. So, the ideal approach speed is roughly about 65-70 in the Cessna. I've taken the first stage of flaps. I'm now going to take the second stage of flaps. I'm using the buttons on my stick, but again the flaps are down there next to the other yoke if you're looking for them. We want to maintain a stabilized sort of 65 approach. Now this is quite scary, right? We are descending in clouds. You can't see anything, right? This would be quite terrifying for a VFR pilot, but we trust our instruments, don't we? So we're continuing down. We can't see anything. We're now below 1,000 feet at 1013. And we are proceeding. We're going to proceed all the way down. I've taken second stage of flaps. I get to 4 nautical miles. That's short final. So now I take the final stage of flaps. And we get ourselves configured on a stabilized approach. We turn off the pitot heat. A little bit slow for my liking. I'm going to put a little bit of power in, right? Again, I'm not flying still, I'm just setting the power settings. ILS is taking us all the way in. I'm aiming for about 65. I haven't done this perfectly, but again, this is about helping you survive and get these flights completed. It's not about being perfect. So now I can see the pappies on the runway. 2 whites, 2 reds. We are ideal. We're coming in on an ideal glide slope. I can now see the runway. I'm going to wait till I get a bit closer before I disable the autopilot. So obviously my pressure was wrong, because now it's going to tell me I'm going to go to negative altitude. But that doesn't matter, right? ILS can capture and still work even if you've got the pressure set incorrectly. Okay, I'm going to turn off autopilot about here, just as we pass the trees. Oh, what's happened there? Do apologise. Something has... One of my controls didn't work. Oh no. Way to ruin my demo. Okay. Okay, autopilot has disabled. Apologies for that. So as we get over the runway, anyway, we want to flare. Oh, this is not good. That's not good. That was a bad example. Sim rate has gone ridiculous. I do apologise for that. Anyway, what you would have done... Such a bad end to such a good tutorial. Anyway, autopilot would have turned off. I'll need to check my mapping for that and why that's gone wrong. Let's get off the runway. We'll do other flights. You'll see that I can land. That was ridiculous. I don't know what the hell happened to my mapping on my Stream Deck there. Don't land like that. That was bad. And so come here. So what you would do, you'd be about 65 knots. You'd be near the runway, about that 100 feet above it. Turn off autopilot. I should have just pressed the button in the cabin. So embarrassed. Anyway, and then you would take the power back and gently flare onto the runway. Hopefully with a rate of descent something around 100 feet would be fine. 100 feet per minute as your descent, as you touch down. Keep it centered with the rudder and then gently brake once you have touched down. But that was a bad example. Yeah, do it live, they say. Do it live. What could go wrong? Anyway, from here on out, we would taxi over to our parking spot. Again, in the career, you would not want to go above 20 knots. I'm in free flight. It's not that big a deal if you're in free flight. I feel like my sim rate's all messed up. I'm going to taxi a bit faster for you guys because I don't want to spend forever in the taxi. Okay, and then we would take our flaps out. Yeah, there's something weird going on. Yes, anybody who's an instructor, who was it? Kevin, I don't know if he's still with us, will tell you, any landing you walk away from is a good landing. Might not be perfect, but if you walk away from it, it was a good landing. That, I don't know what happened there, my Stream Deck just killed me. Feels like we're just going for a bit of a tour of the airport. I hope we're actually going to have a parking space allocated to us. It just kind of ends up here somewhere in general aviation. Okay, fine. Okay, so the reason we did this tutorial in the 172 in free flight is because I don't own a 172 in career. I sold it yesterday to part fund a PC-12. But what we'll do is we'll redo this flight. There we go. We park up. And then what you would do is you would set the parking brake. So for me it's this bottom button on my throttle. And then you can press Control, Shift and E to shut down the engines, or I can press and hold this button that I've mapped to my stick. Although at this point I don't trust any of my mappings anymore. And that would be the end of your flight. I hope that was useful, minus the ridiculous landing. Let's find out what happened with my autopilot mapping. Controls, keyboard, search. It has nothing? Oh, okay, interesting. Autopilot on is configured, autopilot off just not, apparently. I don't know why, I don't know what it did then. What I might actually do is change a different mapping for it anyway. Shift and Z. Okay. Tell you what, I'll remap my Stream Deck instead of the other way around. Stream Deck profile 2024 autopilot off is just Shift and Z. Okay, and then we'll search by input. Slew mode. I don't want slew mode, so we'll kill that. Make sure we don't have double mappings, and that should work next time. I'm glad that was useful. Let's end the fight here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my career mode now, and I'm going to show you kind of what the career mode experience is like. I am just going to take my jacket off, because anybody who has a PC and is running this sim will tell you that the room gets incredibly hot incredibly fast. So, let's come out of free flight. Some lovely ASMR of me drinking there for you. And what I will do is we'll do a VIP flight in the Cirrus Vision Jet, which is probably one I'd recommend you look at doing once you start your career. I know that the medium cargo pays the most, but if you want to actually have some fun and not just grind and access in a caravan, then something like a VIP flight is a good way to go. And I recommend you buy the Cirrus Jet to do it. Let's have a look. I want to find an airport that has either an ILS or an RNAV approach. I don't know if Southampton does. Let's have a look. Okay, have a look. So, what you can do, you look at the missions. You have to come into this view, unfortunately, first. And then hit Tab. And look at the flight plan it's made for you. So this is good. This one has an ILS 20 via SAM, which is good. In the interest of saving everybody's time, let's just remove the departure. So click on that and remove it. We'll remove the en route. We don't need that. Flight level, yeah, 10,000 is probably fine. We'll fly this IFR, so they might send us higher. We'll take their ILS approach 20, but I want to just double check. One of the things I always check before a flight is, it's giving me a runway 20. Is that likely what they're going to give me on arrival? Because they can change if the weather changes en route. So click on the little eye, and then click on runways. And you see how recommended is 02. So it's not likely they're actually going to give us runway 20 when we arrive if we fly with air traffic control. If we don't fly with air traffic control, then we can push ourselves to runway 20, but runway 02 is what is recommended, and it's generally probably what they're going to give us. So what I would typically do in that instance is I would just go, well, let's just plan for 02 just now, which I didn't plan this, has an RNAV approach, which is nice, so we can fly the RNAV approach on that one, assuming it doesn't push us through to 20 by the time we get there. And if it does, I'll show you how to change it. So let's file that with ATC, send it to our avionics, and close off. You now see that the map route here is much more direct. And let's accept the mission. Transfer our Cirrus jet. It's dirty. Just for you guys, I'll clean it. I wouldn't normally. It's still dirty. It will be clean by the time it gets to the next page. What's happening? One second, guys. Just turn the camera off for 2 seconds. In you go. My wife's hanging out in the room but doesn't want to be on the camera. There we go, nice and clean. So, Let's expand our mission steps and show you this one. So in the Vision Jet, you go and take the engine cover off from there. Again, go ahead and take your chocks off, and the pitot covers. This aircraft should be fine. The only extra check I do, and I do it because I've had problems in the caravan, is I do just check my tires. So my tires are good, and I'll check my brakes. My brakes are also good. Okay, so that means we shouldn't have anything embarrassing on the landing on this one. Touch wood, he says. Let's go ahead and get in the aircraft. We will request boarding.
Ladies and gentlemen, boarding is now authorized.
I do wish I
On
could
behalf
skip a
of our
bunch of these
captain,
videos.
welcome aboard.
Telling you, when you're grinding out the money,
They're on their way.
watching all of these videos is a real just time suck. I love the Vision Jet to fly. I thought I would start the flight school in the Cessna because that's what everybody has.
Flight captain, got an important thing in Southampton waiting for me. Appreciate it.
But this is what I
You
actually
mentioned at the
fly,
gate that the network would
and
be
it's
available throughout the
so
flight. I
much
need it for some
nicer.
important calls, captain. So please make sure not to cut off my connection without notifying me.
There's an annoying passenger that they're always needy. They always want something, right? It's like I control the cell phone towers. So again, Control and E. Let's get the aircraft started, right? We're not doing a cold and dark tutorial.
Good morning, Cap.
These are
Today I've had
survival
the pleasure of
tips.
taking Mr. Price to Southampton. He's close to one of our top clients who booked the flight for him. Provide him with the finest service on behalf of our company. I know I can count on you. Have a nice flight.
Okay, perfect. So, first thing I do is I go in and hit speed bugs, and I turn on all my speed bugs because I want to see those. Go and initialize your fuel, confirm, doesn't really matter. Again, it's just a bit of extra realism they want to throw in there. And you can now see on the MFD our flight plan. So, runway 25, and we're going to go to the final approach fix in Southampton, which is fine. Bunch of warnings coming up on the screen. Basically, a bunch of buttons here that you have to press them in the right order. Well, you can press them in any order, but make sure you press them all. So, the emergency battery one is this first button. Turn that off. Probe heat is somewhere over here. Well, that's oxygen. I'll need that anyway, so do the oxygen one. Probe heat must be this one then, so that's pitot heat. It's telling me my fuel is low, which is right. For some reason, I only have 6% fuel. I have mapped add extra fuel quantity. I should show you that. In the controls and keyboard, if I search for input 1, I have add fuel quantity mapped. So if I forgot to add the fuel or set the fuel correctly, I'll just go and add it now, and it'll cost me nothing in the career just to add fuel quantity there. So we'll go ahead and add fuel quantity to about, it does 25% each time. You can change it to do more. It's a fairly short flight, but we'll set it to about 78% anyway, just so that we are good. And now it's going to tell me that my fuel quantity doesn't compare. So that's fine. Just go back. If you really care, you can go back to initial fuel and do a sync and confirm it. And that sets all of that up. Okay, now our map and everything will have loaded. So let's do the rest of the pre-flight setup as we did before. So we want to hit nav so that it knows it wants to fly the flight plan that we've got mapped here. We want to set FLC. FLC works slightly different in the jet. It sets itself to 165 knots regardless, so you can prime FLC, which for some reason I can't right now. Anyway, do that later then. You can hit auto throttle to arm auto throttle for takeoff. Again, I have all this mapped here, but I'm showing you how to do it on the video because oh, I know why FLC is not working. I haven't set an altitude. So let's set our altitude to 10,000 feet with this knob here. And then if we hit FLC, there we go. Oh, it's going for 185 today for some reason. Interesting. So FLC 185 is engaged, FMS is armed, takeoff and auto throttle is armed. We have set our speed bugs. We can do our lights, I was going to say, but I've forgotten where they are. Oh, they're all in front of me. So, strobe light, we'll put the landing light on now so we don't forget. And everything else is fine. So, now we will announce our taxi. I fly too many aircraft. Yeah, again, I'm not here to be perfect. So yeah, we're out of the envelope, I know that. The plane will fly fine. So, we're coming on the RNAV. So that's all set. Let's go and taxi over to the runway. Again, if you were being completely correct, you wouldn't fly outside of the envelope. That'd be very, very bad. But this is a simulator, and it will be fine. So don't worry yourself. What the heck is going on? Wait. Pause. Have I hit? Why am I? Oh. The ground is at an angle. That just scared the hell out of me. That was about to tip. Okay. I thought I'd hit something. The game is a little bit bugged. Sometimes you can spawn in at angles and in buildings and things, and I just thought that's what was happening there.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of our cabin crew, we would like to welcome you on board flight MAM 4010 bound for Southampton. Our flight time will be 22 minutes. We expect an on-time departure, and we're currently ready for takeoff. I will keep you informed of any key updates as we go through the flight.
I have to put quite a bit of throttle in, just because this parking area is so uphill gradient. Okay, so we will announce takeoff.
Echo Golf Zulu Echo traffic
And we'll
Delta.
get lined up.
Romeo Bravo India Echo taking off runway 25 south departure.
You'll notice that since I'm planning an RNAV approach this time, I haven't tuned an ILS frequency. So RNAV works differently to ILS. It uses GPS. So you don't need to tune an ILS frequency. Now if they do send us to runway 20, I will tune that ILS, and you'll see me do it later on in the flight. Well, let's get up and away. As we've entered the runway, we can now put full power. We'll rotate. Gear up. And we'll climb straight out for about 500 feet. Take the flaps out now. We'll acknowledge the handover.
Craywell approach Delta, Romeo Bravo India Echo, is type 1 miles southwest of Echo Golf Zulu Echo 1,000 feet. Request flight following.
I'm holding off for these guys talking. You'll have seen yaw dampener has come on. That's the YD in the middle of the private flight display. I'm now going to turn on autopilot and hope that it doesn't do something crazy. Okay, everything went green. Perfect. Right, now you can see that my autopilot hasn't captured the FMS for some reason, right? That's not a problem, we don't need to panic. Okay, we have set FMS in the middle, acknowledge this hot code. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my flight plan, I'm going to hit on the waypoint I want to go to, which is BAMTU. I'm going to hit the direct to button, and I'm going to hit activate. And there we go, FMS is flashing green, and the aircraft will now turn towards that waypoint. We'll acknowledge the radar contact.
Roger, Bravo, India, Echo.
Bravo, India, Echo, contact. Wittering approach on 135-205. Good day.
We'll bring up the map. Full screen map. And acknowledge all these ETC calls.
205 for Bravo, India, Echo.
Go outside and take a look. So it's telling me to climb to 11,000 feet. So that's fine. So just come in here and just change the altitude selector to 11,000. We're still in the climb, so nothing else to change. And we'll request our IFR clearance. I did hit the button. Now let's see if it's going to do it for me, or if it's just not going to let me do it now. Screen gets a little bit busy as you have all these other windows open. It's not happy with me that I didn't request my IFR clearance, but then it's also not letting me do it manually. Gotta love the career mode. Anyway, as we are in the cruise, let's go ahead and increase that sim rate a little bit. So that's 2, 4, might even try for 8 on this one. Let's see how stable we are.
London Center, Delta, Romeo, Bravo, India, Echo, 9,800 feet. Delta, Romeo, Bravo, India, Echo, London Center, QNH 1026, radar contact, continue. London Center, Delta, Romeo, Bravo, India, Echo, 8 miles southeast of Echo Golf, Bravo Golf, 11,000 foot, request IFR to Southampton, ready to
Now it's doing it.
Romeo, Bravo, India, Echo is cleared to Southampton Airport as filed. Squawk 1352.
Okay. Now it's telling me to inform the passengers, so now it's going to tell me I haven't responded to him quickly enough. These are the bugs that happen in the career mode, right? Things go out of sequence, and you just can't let it get you down. 1026 converts to 3030 in inches. I haven't figured out in this aircraft, someone tell me if you figured it out, how to change the baro from inches to hectopascals. So I just have a conversion chart on my iPad here. So yeah, 1026 is what he gave me, 30.30. And I've gone and set that with the baro knob just here to the right of the PFD. And you'll now see in the ribbon just below the altitude, 3030. So that's all good. Apparently I don't have to acknowledge squawk codes anymore. Anyway, we are cruising along. In the touchscreen, give me the list of controls, because I have tried to search for this,
Everything's set up there, so it should go pretty
and I can't figure out how to get it to go to hectopascals
Can you text
on
me
this
the driver's
aircraft.
number? I haven't gotten it. Thanks.
Thomas should be co-presenting this with me. Under maintenance, Where's that? Aircraft systems? Because I've been through all of these. Yeah, if you can figure it out, let us know in the chat. I've been through, as far as I can tell, every setting in there, and I can't figure out how to change it in this aircraft. Oh, okay, hold on, let me... well, we'll maybe do it more on the ground. That's what we'll do, because this is going to go quite fast. For purposes of this flight, you can use a conversion table. If you have the sim up, Thomas, and you could go and find that for me, that'd be great. It's one of the few things I haven't figured out yet, and it would just improve my quality of life with this aircraft if I could set that to hectopascals. Now, on the flight plan, what we want to do is, when we get to the final approach fix, we want the aircraft to be going at 90 knots. So, I'll slow down and I'll show you this again. So from the main MFD page, you go to flight plan, and then I'm finding the one that says FAF under it, so that's Hotel India 02 Foxtrot, and I'm going to hit on this third box. I'm going to hit the speed constraint, and I'm going to set that to 90, and I'm going to hit enter. And that just helps me control the speed automatically through the auto throttle as we come in for the approach. Allows me to focus on everything else that's going on.
This is David. Long time no see. You doing okay? I'll be soon in Southampton.
No problem, Thomas.
Tomorrow,
You can leave a comment on any of my other videos if you want, if you figure it out, or you know, come and join the next live stream. PFD settings. Oh, look at this. Thomas does it again. Inches. Okay, I should go back and show everyone that in slow mode. PFD settings, I've missed the fact that there's a down arrow here. You can go down, down, and then you can set that from inches to hectopascals. Brilliant. Medal for Thomas. Okay, now, let's just reduce the sim rate there for a second. You might have missed it. He cleared us ILS 20 approach via the SAM transition. We're currently set up for the different runway. What you can do, well, there's a couple of ways you can do this. The easiest way is to do it in the EFB, right? So, change it to runway 20, and then it will pick an ILS 20 via direct, which we were not cleared. We were cleared via the SAM transition. So you have to change the transition, make sure ILS 20 is selected and that SAM transition is selected, change that procedure, and then send that to the avionics. Okay. So we'll acknowledge that. Well, that's done now. If you'll see now back down at my flight plan, things have changed. So runway 25 is now going to SAM. And because we're now going on an ILS, we have to tune that ILS frequency. So let's go ahead and click on the I next to Southampton. Go to runways, expand 20. The ILS frequency is 110.75. So on this touchscreen just below our PFD, we can hit the nav com, just because it's easier to see it right in front of us. And then if we hit audio and radios, and then nav 1 if you hit on the frequencies, you can actually see that it had it primed there, but we'll just, for completeness of the video, 110.75, and then we'll hit the transfer or XFER button. It was already tuned, but that's how you would tune it, just to be sure, and then switch that back to PFD. So we now know that we are tuned for that ILS approach.
Southampton Tower. QNH 1026 cleared ILS runway
You haven't given me an altitude. That's interesting. Okay, QNH 1026 is fine. Let's see if I can get the altitude. Is the map going to load? Nope, the maps have just decided they don't want to load today. So, what I will do in that case is I will assume that we are going to be at between 2.5 and 3,000 above the runway,
Bravo India Echo.
unless she
acknowledged.
gives me a descent. Doesn't sound like she's going to.
20 approach Bravo India.
The elevation of the runway is 44 feet, so we're going to go down to 2,900 just now. I'm going to do this on my stream deck, but you can see you'd be spinning the altitude knob
Vertical track.
down, and you can see that my flight plan is telling me to be above 3,000. So let's go for 3,000 just now, and then I'm going to hit flight level change. This aircraft nosedives in the flight level change. Don't think that's realistic, but it is quite fun. So, outside view as we nosedive through the clouds at 6,000 feet per minute. And so, as you can see, things can change during the flight. So you can set up your flight fully expecting RNAV, which is what I thought, based on the recommended runway, and then ATC gave me the ILS. You know, adapt and survive, basically. It's one of the nice things about 2024 is that it will do that. You can go and tell it to force hold the runway that was selected in the flight plan, but it's not realistic, and it's kind of fun to have to do a last minute change of your runway. So we're down at 3,000. Again, what it will do now is it will forget that I had put that speed in, so let's go back and set that speed constraint of 90 at the final approach fix. And then once we get past Sam, we'll descend down to 1,800. The way I'm getting that from is I'm pulling that from the flight plan. So you see the flight plan here. It's got the waypoints in one column, the next column it says altitude. So that's got 1,800 with a bar underneath it. That means you have to be above 1,800 at that waypoint. So if you look at where we're going just now, Sam has above 3,000 feet and above, at 185 knots. So we could set that. And I can show you how to do that in a second, then I will. Then it's saying we want to be down to above 1,800 at the next waypoint. So that's where I'm pulling these altitudes from, because I can't pull the chart for some reason. So you can see what's happened here is now that it's getting close to that waypoint, the auto throttle has pulled that from the flight management system, and it has set the target speed now to 185, so that we will be there as we cross that waypoint. Check my auto throttle. My auto throttle's good. Now, if you wanted to set this manually, I'm not going to because we're coming in on the approach now, but if you look down at the auto throttle in this aircraft, yes. Thomas, right, I was just getting there. You're one step ahead of me all the time. You have speed reference, right? So FMS is currently set, so it's taking it there from the flight plan. You can set manual, and then you can use this knob here to set the manual speed that you want the aircraft to be at. Again, for quality of life, it's better to have the autopilot and autothrottle do most things for you through the flight plan if you can. But yeah, sure. Do it manually, that works too. We have been cleared, I think, on the approach, but it's too early to arm the approach just yet, because it looks like we're going to do this bit of a circle here, a circle descent. So I wasn't planning on covering VNAV today. I'm not sure if I will. I might not. So we'll just fly the altitudes manually. So our next target altitude is 1800. So I'm going to preset that. And then once we get over SAM, I'm going to hold this at 18. That one hold 185, that's fine. The next one I want 140. Okay, and so that's us now heading to that next waypoint. I'm lazy, so I'm just going to hit flight level change. Technically, you should do a 3-degree descent. I haven't been using Toga. To be honest, I wasn't aware this one had it. I've been using it in the 737, but I haven't been using it in this one. I do have Toga maps to my Stream Deck. Yeah. You really shouldn't descend at that rate, that close to the ground. But I've flown this plane so much that I trust it. Typically you would set a vertical speed and come down at whatever the correct 3 degrees is. So I will keep saying it for everyone watching. This is a survival guide, not a perfection guide. This is how to complete a flight successfully, not how to do it completely perfectly in real life. Okay, cool. I will try Toga in a future flight. Maybe not in this aircraft today. I'm trying to cover a few things you'll have asked me in comments and in the Discord today, specifically. But I will certainly play with the Toga in this aircraft. That'd be kind of fun. One less thing for me to worry about. So you can see now, as we're heading towards the waypoint 72 India Sierra November, it's picked up. Then I told it to slow down to 140, and so now it's pulling the aircraft back. To that. If you take a look just to the left of the altitude ribbon, you will start to just very briefly see a bit of a diamond creeping in from the top. That might look familiar to you. It's very similar to how it works in the 172, right? This is an ILS approach, or it will be soon. Once we get a bit closer into the airport, I will be marking that ILS approach to being on. It's going to be stabilized and everything on my approach first. Again, a nice little IFR approach where we can't see anything, forces us into the instruments, right? And a lot of the flights in the career mode are forcing us into instrument landings, and so, you know, it's good to know how to do these things. The approach button in this aircraft, when we are ready to arm it, is just here to the right of the heading knob. again, or you can map it to your Stream Deck, if you have one. I'm terrified of my Stream Deck now, after that last flight. It seems to be working okay now. My autopilot button was just a little bit, I don't know, lost its mapping for some reason. Okay. So, we're slowing down. Let's take the first stage of flaps in. Let's arm the approach. So you see that immediately it grabbed the localizer, and the green diamond is starting to come down on that left side of the PFD. Once it hits the middle, again, just like last time, we will capture the glide slope and it will bring us in. My personal preference, I don't lower the gear until I am cleared to land. I don't know what the standard operating procedure should be, but that's just my personal preference. So by getting ourselves set up early, then in this busy stage of the flight, we could focus on what matters, right? So we had the ILS tuned early, we had our altitude set, we had our speed set in the FMS. We've just captured the glide slope now.
Bravo India Echo wind calm, cleared to land runway 20.
That's our clear to land, gear down.
Cleared to land runway 20 Bravo India Echo.
Now I can't screw up this landing because this is my aircraft. This is not a free fly aircraft. This is actually my one in the career. I'm not taking that final stage of flaps just yet. We are quite far out. 3.5 nautical miles, and I don't want to just drag it in all the way. There's no need. So wait till we get probably down below about 1,000 feet, and then we'll take that final stage of flaps. Just confirming my QNH is still correct, 1026, yep. I do wish there was a button for checking QNH is correct all the time. There used to be one in 2020, but I can't find the mapping for it in 2024 to just... I used to have a button mapped where it would be, which would set the barrel pressure to the most recent local pressure. But I haven't found it, or I can't get it to work in 2024. So frustratingly, you have to, or I have to, does that work? Comma? I'll check it once I land. Thomas is all over it. But yeah, because that'd be good. Again, nice quality of life thing for me, because I don't necessarily want to fly with the ATC. The ATCs can be quite buggy. So I want to just take off, cancel my IFR plan, and then just fly myself, basically, and then just contact the arrival airport. Okay, let's get that final stage of flaps in now. Autopilot's about to turn off on me. Yep, so just about 400, 500 feet, something like that. The autopilot will disable in this aircraft and auto throttle. Be ready for that. It's not like the Boeings that will try and bring it all the way in for you. Although you shouldn't do that either, because that will take you off the runway and you'll have a bad time. This will just turn off autopilot below about 500 feet. Okay, kill my throttle now. A little bit back in, a little bit back in. Flare it up, flare it up. Let's see if we can touch the numbers. My frame rate has gone to hell again. Don't do this to me. That was heavy. Heavy, heavy, heavy. My frame rate died, as you can see. You can see my frame rate is dying on me. I would still say that was better than my last one. But for some reason my frame rate just completely lost it for me there on in the flare. Anyway, coming in at 90, again, as you come over the numbers, you can take the throttle back, gentle flare, and if your frame rate cooperates, you can have a really nice butter landing. I'm not able to show that today probably because I'm trying to stream the runway and stream up to the internet at the same time. It's probably just a bit much for my internet doing all this. Let's get off of the...
Bravo India Echo, contact ground on 118-205.
Okay.
118-205 Bravo India Echo. Southampton ground Delta, Romeo Bravo India Echo taxi to parking.
Delta, Romeo Bravo India Echo taxi to general aviation parking via taxi.
Taxiing to general aviation parking using taxiway Bravo.
That's interesting, Thomas. The gear and flap won't drop until you're under the speeds. But I'm pretty sure if you try to, you'll still get a pilot error, even if it doesn't actually do it and damage the aircraft. That length of runway, I probably could have landed with 50% flap anyway. Anyway, welcome to Southampton. It doesn't? That's surprising, because 2024 likes to give you pilot errors for absolutely anything it can. Okay. So, we're getting on to 1 hour and 40 odd of streaming. There's probably time for one more flight tonight, or to demonstrate one more thing. And I'm not just doing circuits until I can do a nice landing. I'm not doing that. Humility. With my frame rate seems to have gone to hell. But if there's something else, if there's another question, if there's something you're struggling with in the career mode, in the sim, something I can help you with, now's the time to ask. Because we have time for one more flight. Okay, so we'll park up here in the stand, parking brakes on and engine off.
We'll totally recommend this company.
Passenger seemed happy. Hopefully this has proven helpful to some of you who have been struggling, especially with capturing ILSs and setting up some of these aircraft. I'll take that. An A rating. If there are no questions in the chat, I think what we'll do... so, yeah, passenger charter flight, private, pays between about 100 and 200,000 credits. It's not the best money maker, but I do like flying the Vision Jet. I own the Longitude. I have grinded for the Longitude, but there's no missions yet that I can see anyway in the map to fly the Longitude. And a bunch of the medium aircraft are kind of bugged. I haven't tried the Longitude. I hope it's fine. But things like the ES-30, I'm told, is bugged. The Saab 340 is bugged. You can't even do a full and free. It just primary flight controls don't work on the Saab 340. And I'm told that the PC-24 is also broken. So I bought the PC-12. And if there's no questions in the chat, I think the final flight of the night is going to be a cargo medium flight in the PC-12, which I have over here in Asia. We'll be using a lot of sim rate because these flights are really long. But this will be a nice demonstration to show you sim rate at max. The PC-12 flies really well at max sim rate. Let's try for this one. And I'll show you some of the nuances of flying around the PC-12 as well, because it flies nice, but it's not without its bugs. Primarily, it doesn't load the flight plan in from here. But we'll set it up the same way as we always would, right? So we always want to come in and go, okay, runway 5, is that going to be the runway? Yeah, probably. Right, get rid of all these waypoints because that's just going to add time to my flight. And we don't care about realism, we care about completing the flight and getting paid. Direct out, change that procedure. And then we want to see, is there an ILS? Is there some sort of instrument approach? There's not. So we'll just set for an L direct, which is much better than the teardrop that it tries to get you to do. We can check, it's better to do it this way actually. Is there an ILS on either of these runways? Probably not. No, it's a very, very short. There's a medium runway actually, so it's probably fine. I have no experience with the PC-12. Okay. Thomas might learn something. So, file this with ATC, send it to avionics. That won't work, but it will work once we get in. The PC-12's pressurization system does not work. So, you can't fly above flight level 180. Otherwise, everybody asphyxiates. Because the aircraft does not pressurize. So, set your flight plan to 180 as well. And in fact, I don't want to deal with IFR, so we'll VFR it the whole way as well. Just I don't want to deal with air traffic control. Let's go. And we'll transfer the PC-12. Whilst we're loading, quick time for another little bit of shilling. If you have enjoyed the stream, if you are learning, please do like and subscribe. It does help the channel, and I really appreciate your support. I try not to ask too many times, but I am a relatively small channel. Let's go. I like now that the aircraft that you own in career have liveries on them. This was part of the latest update. Before that, they were all just pure white. And like, your name was basically written on the side of it in Comic Sans. It's kind of embarrassing. This plane is dirty, but it is a cargo flight. No passengers to complain about it. I'll just look at my tires. Yeah, that's probably fine. Try not to do too much of a hard landing. This aircraft was brand new a couple of days ago. I've only done like 4 or 5 flights in it. My first flight with it, we did not get on. I had to abort out the landing, or it would have been bye-bye to 5 million credits or whatever it is I paid for it.
Good morning. How are you? So we're flying to Naha with general freight. Everything's secure at the back. Nothing's moving. It's going to be smooth and easy.
This plane, I have found, if I do what they say is a 6-hour flight, obviously with sim rate it's a lot faster than that, you'll get about 1 million credits for what they would say is a 6-hour flight. Which, and this plane is so much nicer to fly than the Caravan. If you have to deal with the Caravan, if you can save up for this, your quality of life is just going to go way high. So we'll start the engine again using the Control E, or the command I've mapped to my stick. We'll let
Hi there.
it get
It's
started up.
Johan. Now that you're all set up, let me go over the important details with you. You have bulk cargo behind you. Standard shipment for one of our clients based in Naha. Expected in no time at Iishima UX AB. Skids are designed to withstand turbulence, but it's crucial that you keep a steady flight speed and adjust to changing conditions. Let's get the cargo there secure and on time. You have all the pertinent information in your flight packet as a reminder. Safe travels.
Expected in no time. Yeah. Okay, sure, I can get you there in no time. So, as you can see, on the MFD, there's no flight plan. It didn't load it in. People complain about this a lot. What you can do, you got your flight plan, right? You just send route to avionics. Oh, actually, no, it's completely bugged. Hold on a second. I'm just going to try to restart this flight, see if it's going to fix that for me. So that flight plan that we did previously, the sim has lost it for some reason. So I'm just going to try to reload the flight. We'll skip all that pre-flight checks, just for, we've already done it, right? I just want to check if the EFB is going to work this time. What I may have to do is come out and choose a different route. This is part of the bugs with this aircraft, right? And the sim as well. The EFB is not perfect. Nope. It's not fixed itself. Great. Apologies, I will have to come out and choose a different flight. It's just part of the fun of flying in as a beta tester, basically, for Microsoft. Because in order to get that to work in the PC-12, you have to have a route, and that route didn't have a destination, so that was kind of useless. I don't particularly want to fly up into those mountains if I can avoid it. 5.5 hours. I've got aircraft at this airport. Okay, let's have a look. Let's see how small the runway is. I don't really want it on a tiny small runway. If it's a medium, I'll take it. If it's small, I'm gonna move. Not that I can't land on a small, but we've seen the performance issues I've had on landing whilst on stream, so I don't want to take a risk. Oh, large. Yeah, I'll take that. Okay, fine. Let's just accept the mission just now. And then what we'll do is we'll just cancel IFR and stuff like that if it loads in properly. Okay, Matthew, do you have your own company? Do you own your own PC-12 in your own company? Sorry, I'm not trying to sound... I apologize for my tone there. In order to get the higher payouts, you have to have the company, you have to own the plane, and I don't know why you'd only get 70k for a medium cargo. That's really low for medium cargo. Make sure you're flying in freelance mode and not in employee mode. You might be accidentally flying in employee mode. So on that previous screen that I was on the left at the top, was employee and freelance. Make sure you're flying in freelance mode. This says it's going to give 587,000 just for completing the flight, and then if you do no skip and you fly in bad weather, so you keep the clouds enabled, then you get no skip bonus and you get a weather bonus as well. And that's typically how you get the 1 million credits. You might be flying in small cargo. Yes, you might not be in medium cargo. If you're not flying the Caravan or the PC-12, if you're flying something like a 172, you're probably flying small cargo, not medium cargo. Medium cargo pays way more. The G2 is a great plane, but medium cargo, if you're trying to grind for money, pays way more. Right, let's just see if the flight plan's actually carried in this time. Huzzah! We have a destination. Perfect. Okay, let's jump into the aircraft.
Hi there. Spionhen. Now that you're all set up, let me go over the important details with you. You're carrying goods in bulk on this flight. Shipment is from our partner site and time critical. You must reach Bayerfeldskoy ASAP. Our skids are built to handle turbulence but maintain a constant flight speed. Let's keep our delivery on time and safe.
So as I was saying,
All relevant
delete all the
information
pointless
is in the flight
waypoints.
packet, which is uploaded on your map as a reference.
Set yourself to direct
Smooth
out.
sailing ahead.
Check for a nice approach. If not, L direct's usually fine. Check if any of the runways have ILS, but they probably don't. They don't. Fine. And neither's got a preference. And once you have that set, then file that with ATC. Tell you want to fly VFR. That might be too late for that, but either way, file that with ATC again. And then send that route to avionics, and you'll see that that's now popped up here on the center screen, which you then have to hit activate. It's a touch screen, so just hit activate on it. And you now have your route into your nav. So, some pre-flight setups. Did I 290 again? I might have to request a reduction because I came out. I completely forgot to redo all of this. Cruise altitude 180 because again this aircraft will not pressurize. It's a problem with the plane. Let's set our altitude to 18,000. Get ourselves ready for takeoff. 18,000. We will set half bank. So you want to turn on half bank. I should show you that if we look over here. If you bank too heavily with a cargo flight, you will impact the cargo and you'll get a lower score. So setting half bank, similar to what you would do for the Medivac flights, if you do use that for Medivac flights, reduces the bank angle that the aircraft will use when doing turns, which is useful. We can prime auto throttle, we can prime the nav, and we are ready to taxi.
Romeo Kilo
Flaps
0 Kilo
215.
traffic, Pilatus Juliet Alpha 6867 is taxiing to runway 28.
On this plane, I don't know. I haven't looked for tutorials. I kind of am self-taught. So we'll hold here. One of the things I should have said, ignore the fact that I'm about to hit that other aircraft. When I was take off, we need to do a bit of backtrack. Because we have to taxi, and this is a turboprop plane, there's a button down here that will lower the propeller speed, and that will just stop you from like taking off as you're trying to backtrack down the runway. Make sure you turn that back off before you try and take off though. This aircraft also has reverse thrust, so you can use that to keep your taxi speed relatively slow as well. This is a tiny runway. So we're gonna need all the space we can get. Let's get right to the end here. Turn around. use the outside just to help me here. Okay. So, clear for takeoff. I'm going to hold the brakes, put power to 50%, let it run up. This is a short runway. I want to treat it like a short runway. Oh, what's going on? Abort that takeoff. Something tried to turn me completely left. Try again. Buggy aircraft. Third time. There we go.
V1, rotate.
Stall.
Gear up. Flaps up. Do I have to use propeller reverse thrust or bind throttle reverse thrust with those planes? Yes, you should map it to something. You're going to need reverse thrust because the medium cargo flights like to land you, and as you just saw there, take you off on really small airfields. You're going to need reverse thrust to throw that to slow down, otherwise you're going to go off the end. Okay, so autopilot on. We'll tap in here now to the nav screen. We'll set direct to, and we will activate. We will set flight level change to get our climb going. I haven't handed it over yet. You can see I'm still holding a bit of back pressure until I see the autopilot matching the flight director, which it has done now there. So that pink kind of arrow in the middle of the primary flight display is the flight director, and you want those two to be matching before you just hand over the plane to itself to fly, otherwise you're going to have a bad time. Right, so it will climb now using flight level change at 140 knots, and whatever rate of climb it can get, up to 18,000 for us. Auto throttle's on, and it's going to be using the speed set in here, which we don't want it to, because that's the approach speed into runway 23. So what you can do, and we'll do this once we get to altitude, is this. Oh, it's behind me, you can't see it. Put it over there. On these controls in the middle, you can change the speed selector from FMS to manual by using the back part of it, and then you can set the manual speed selector that you want. Probably about 200 to 230 in the cruise is going to be good for this aircraft. So yeah. No, again, fuel levels fine. This is a survival guide. Thomas, you're too much of a purist for your own good. So fuel is fine, and if it's not, we can use the add fuel that we've bound to key 1 on the keyboard to add fuel. I'm not doing a complete cold and dark start on these aircraft. This is a how to complete the flight and successfully get the money live stream, not a complete cold and dark purist. Plus, I wouldn't know how to compare fuel quantity. In this plane, I've only flown it 5 times. I don't want to crash either, but I keep track of my fuel quantity on the bottom left of my screen. Because I switch aircraft so often that sometimes it can be quite hard to even know where to look. Obviously, like the 172 we're all familiar with, right? But as you get into all the other aircraft, I'm using the HUD basically to check that, and if I think my fuel's too low, I'm just going to top it up. So, I appreciate your concern for us and all of our safety. I'm trying to show the absolute noobs, hopefully, the absolute noobs, and that's no disrespect, how to successfully complete some of these flights.
10,000 feet.
If you can afford it, Matthew, go for the PC-12. The 208 is like flying a bowl of jelly. If you can't afford the PC-12, go for the 208. But it's a learning experience. The PC-12 is a lot more forgiving. So, as we get over above 10,000, we should really set standard pressure. So Barrow is here. If we click and then hold the left click as well, that'll set standard pressure. Yeah, if you have it, if you might have it and you can afford the caravan, buy the caravan. Just be prepared to, yeah, have some interesting landings. Maybe try landing it in free flight. Maybe before you even, if you haven't already, haven't committed the money, go try do some like circuits in free flight and see what you think of the caravan. You might choose to grind on that G2 to get the PC-12. Yes, I have employees. I have 6 aircraft. Couldn't name them all. We can show you after this flight. And I have crew turned on for them all. So one thing to bear in mind there, I'm in the UK. So midnight UK time is when the payout happens if you have crew turned on. And I'm told in the Discord and things like this, and I trust them, that if you're flying over that time, you won't get any payout. So if you're flying around about midnight UK time, make sure you land about 11:45 or 10 to 12, something like that, and get out of flying. Basically just sit on the main menu of Flight Sim, clock will strike over 12, then go back into career mode and you'll get paid. If you don't, you won't get paid, but I believe you also won't get an insurance bill. So it's a little bit of a bug, you know, give and take kind of thing. But yes, and the way that, I don't know what the ratio is, but the way that it seems to work with the crew as well is that the crew will fly your aircraft for a portion of the time that you've actually flown in Flight Sim for that day. So I don't know the exact ratios, don't quote me on any of this. If you've flown for say 4 hours in the day, then you might get 2 hours per other aircraft you have of crewed time paid out to you at the midnight cutover. So advice is, you know, if you want crew payouts, you have to fly, and don't be flying over midnight. Land, come out, and then go back in after midnight if you want the crew payouts on that. They do apply wear and tear to your aircraft. I believe they cannot crash them anymore. Which they could in the very first version, but they will apply wear and tear to your aircraft. Okay, so what speed have we set? Okay, so it's set Mach 0.470 Mach, that's fine. So it's going to pull us up to our cruising speed. Now obviously this is a really long flight and we don't want to be streaming for the next 6 hours, right? So we're going to use SimRate now, and the PC-12, one of the benefits of it over the caravan, huge benefit, you can go to the maximum sim rate and it is stable. The caravan, no, you'll crash. Obviously over mountains and we're flying relatively low, you're going to get a bit of up and down. That's kind of to be expected, but it's, you know, it's not going to kind of impact your mission, but it's stable. The caravan, oh my god, it's not stable at all. Basically above like 4 times sim rate. Is it worth it to have one crew? Always. I mean, I know people on the Discord that have multiple Vision jets or multiple caravans that they use to grind to have the crew. If you have multiple aircraft, I would always recommend having the employees and the crew turned on. Always, because as you get more aircraft, you're basically multiplying your payout, right? So even if you fly 2 hours a day, if you buy a new aircraft, let's say twice a week, at 700,000 for a new Cirrus jet or something like that, right? Every time you add a new aircraft to your fleet, you're adding an extra, let's even say it's 50% payout, an extra 1 hour of crewed payout per plane you're adding in. So, yeah, I know people that have done that approach. I decided not to. I just wanted the planes I wanted, so I own a SAP 340. I've got two PC-12s, because I've got one in cargo and one in medevac. I've got the Longitude, I've got an ES-30, and a Vision jet. I think that's all of them. I'm not going to be streaming at midnight. I'm going to stop after this flight. But I might post a community post or something to show you what I got paid today after all the flying I've done, just so you can kind of see what the payout is. So if you are subscribed, you can have a look out for that in my community posts later on. But no, crew's always worth doing, now that they can't crash your plane. It wasn't worth doing it when they could crash your plane and cost you millions. Now they just apply wear and tear. And if the plane is not in a suitable condition to fly, because you haven't maintained it, then that plane won't fly that day. Which is fine too. So we're hurtling along here, and yeah, basically again just let autopilot fly it. As you can see, auto throttle's keeping us within sort of a green airspeed and really fast compared to what the Caravan can do. I think the Caravan's top speed's like can I get this wrong? Somebody was looking at buying it, they could tell me. It's like 180, something like that, but typically you're going to fly at 160 anyway. Top speed of this one I think is like 280, but you're going to fly about 220 most of the time, because you don't want to top speed out your aircraft, let's be honest. But you're not worrying about engine T's and P's, anything like that, because the auto throttle's keeping everything green. Keep an eye on your fuel. As Thomas says, you don't want to be going at max sim rate and run out of fuel. You're going to have a bad time. But I also don't want to overfuel either, because you do want to fly within the envelope of safety if you can. So I typically wait till I'm kind of down at 20% fuel, and then I might add more, just to make sure that I'm kind of within the envelope each time. But I'm not going for uber realism. End of the day, we all have jobs. Well, probably most of us have jobs, maybe not all of us, or school or whatever else we do with our lives, and you know, I'm not going to spend my whole time being a purist and trying to do everything perfectly. If I can get a flight or two done safely and get paid out, then that's what I'm aiming for. But you do care a lot more when it's your aircraft. When you pay something like 5 million for the Pilatus PC-12, and then yeah, if you crash that, that's gonna hurt. So if you're the kind of person that slams your planes down and doesn't care and whatever else in free flight, and then you go into career mode, you're gonna start going around a hell of a lot more than you would have in free flight, because you're like, if I crash this, that's gonna cost me like $1 million to repair it, or a couple million to repair it, or whatever. Like, and if you completely write it off, maybe even have to buy a whole new plane. Yeah, and you know, like Matthew knows how long it takes to grind $1 million. You know, when you're starting out anyway, like you really want to make sure you look after your aircraft. Do use SimRate. I do recommend it. Microsoft might stop it working at some point, at which point I think the career mode is going to die, because none of us have 6 hours to just sit around and watch a 6-hour flight. You know, but SimRate, again, for anybody who's just joining, you can hit Alt plus R, enables SimRate, and then Control plus or Control minus to change the sim rates. If Microsoft stops that working in Korea, I think it's going to die, because nobody's going to sit around for 6 hours. We all got better things to do. So yes, I've got a few of the mid planes that I can't fly, and I can't fly the ES30, I can't fly the Longitude, and I can't fly the SAB 340. But I have been buying a lot of these mid planes because hopefully when they fix either the planes or they enable the missions for them, so there's no missions for the Longitude right now in Private Charter Tier 2. Hopefully they will fix that. Then I want to fly the Longitude, and I'll do other live streams where I fly that, because in 2020 that was my favourite aircraft to fly, was the Longitude. But I want to fly in Korea. I don't want to fly in free flight. Now that the career mode's available, anything else just seems not worth my time. But I don't know. I'll do free flight at some point. I'll go and do some achievement hunting at some point in this sim. I haven't really done the grinding for the achievements yet. So what do we think? Is it going to let me have a nice landing, or is the frame rate going to completely die on me again and not let me have even one nice landing on this stream? How far out are we? 162, okay. And the airport is at elevation 279. Okay, so as we get closer and out of these mountains, we can start coming down to... I like to be about 2,000 feet above the runway altitude before I take over, so that's going to be about 2,300, 2,500, something like that. That I will descend to an autopilot before I take over, but we're quite a bit out yet. So the benefit of flying VFR, you don't have to deal with any of those annoying ATC calls. And you also don't lose points for missing them in your sim rating either. Now so I find out I'm actually on flying IFR and I forgot to switch it off. But no, I'm not. But yeah, if you choose VFR, well, I guess you could fly a 6-hour flight at that point. Set on autopilot, go to work, come back. But if you're flying IFR, you're just going to get hit with so many pilot errors from missing your ATC calls, and unlike 2020, you cannot set your co-pilot to make the ATC calls for you. So I'm going to slow the sim rate down a little bit now as we're getting close to that 50 nautical mile from the airfield. Because we're going to start descending. Let's have our first rate of descent down to 10,000. So, I'm doing this on my stream deck now, right? Because you've kind of seen how to do that. You find the altitude knob, which in this aircraft would be this one. Big knob will do thousands, small knob will do hundreds. And then you can either hit flight level change, or you can set your own vertical speed that you want to go at. I'm going to use flight level change. And come back out. And watch us descend. So the controls are very similar across most aircraft, right? Once you see me doing these things in the Cessna, and then in the Vision Jet, it's more about trying to find where is the button in the new plane, right? Yes, 18,000 feet Matthew for the PC-12 is because there's currently a bug in this aircraft that it doesn't pressurize. So, yeah, hypoxia. Yeah, absolutely. The aircraft has a bug in it where it doesn't pressurize, so 18,000 feet is the maximum altitude you can fly at before everybody would stop being able to breathe and you would black out. So the aircraft can go higher if it would pressurize, and if they fix that, then you would fly higher. But yeah, right now, no. Just see my fuel was quite low, so I'm doing a fuel top up, even though we are pretty close to the field now. So that's 10,000. So let's try, we'll slow the sim rate again, above it now. Let's try Thomas's trick of pressing, well, let's come out of the standard barrel pressure. So, and then pressing comma. Oh, look at that! Oh, I'm learning so much tonight, and I'm meant to be teaching. Comma sets the current local pressure. That's a quality of life benefit I like. Okay, so now that I've got that, I'm feeling comfortable that we can start descending, let's say down to 5,000 just after we pass this mountain range in front of us. Let's not descend, because I'm using flight level change, which, as we've seen, nosedives the aircraft. In fact, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to set a manual speed. I'm going to bring it back to 150. Again, you can't see that, it's behind me. Ugh, I'm always in the way. I toggled this from FMS to manual, and then I pulled the knob in front of it back to 1. See, I need to see the screen and the thing. Yeah, I pulled it back to 150. Right, that pulls the auto throttle back to 150. And then if I hit flight level change, it'll target 150 as it's coming down. It's not going to make 150, it's not going to do it, but at least it'll prevent the aircraft from overspeeding as we come down to 5,000. So as we get closer and closer to the aircraft, we're going to be bringing it down to about 2,000 above elevation, and then we will fly the circuit in. But knowing that we have the right barrel pressure gives me a lot more confidence to flight level change, because if the barrel pressure is wrong, you can flight level change yourself into the ground, and then you're going to have a bad time. So, RDHA, I don't know how you would want me to say that. I showed it earlier on in the stream, you should be able to go back and watch it, but you get your flight plan in here, you need to send the route to avionics. It'll then appear on the MFD, you hit activate, and then once you're in the sky, if you click on the waypoint you want and go direct to, I'm try to do this whilst I'm on the approach. Direct to, and then hit activate again. As long as you've got your nav engaged, everything will be fine, and you'll be able to use nav. Right, I need to slow my sim rate down because we're going way too fast. I need to bring us down to about 3,000. I will put a vertical speed in here because I don't want to fall into the ground. We're going to pull our target speed all the way back now. We're going to be using headings. The runway is on 23. Who's good with quick maths? Nobody? The answer is 05. To get into the downwind, and we'll toggle the heading mode. You take 23 minus 18. That'll give you your downwind heading. We are now below 180. I'm going to lower the gear. We're below 170. I'm going to take 15 flaps. We will contact the arrival airport.
Uniform Hotel Bravo 1 traffic Pilatus Juliet Alpha 68676 miles south 4000. Ford inbound to land runway 23.
I say when you're flying real time, it feels really slow once you've been in sim rate. That's just a artifact of flying sim rate. So our wheels are down, our first stage of flaps are in, and we are joining the downwind. We're coming down to 2,000 feet now on the autopilot. There's our runway. Yeah, it's weird how much of a drag it feels flying normal rate once you've sim rated it for a little while. But you can see the speed of the numbers are changing on in the engine controls, and the altitude and airspeed is all looking fine. So let's bring ourselves down now to 1,000 above the runway. Vertical speed down. I'm going to take over in a second, but I just like to have it fly as much as possible because I'm lazy. Okay, so we're looking out, finals there now to the left. So we want to turn our heading to 3-2. Take in flaps. Bring our speed now back to target 95. Gear down. Did I already put the gear down? I think I did. Oh, my mistake. Okay, putting the gear down again. I did it way too early. 3 greens are down. My mistake. Voice tells you your sim rate. Which voice? Okay. So we'll take that final stage of flaps. Autopilot off.
Autopilot.
And we'll fly her into final. Oh, I'm really close actually. So again, you want to target something about 90 to 100 as you're coming in. Oh, look at that crosswind. Look at that windsock. It's a complete crosswind. Over the runway, as I say, so we'll start flaring out. We might actually get a nice landing. So we'll flare. There we go, reverse thrust. We're not taking brakes, we're reverse thrusting. We don't want to wear down our brakes if we don't have to. And we've slowed down, so we'll take off that reverse thrust and we'll just let the aircraft taxi us down. As I say, we'll turn down the prop rate, so that we don't just taxi back to a takeoff. We can take the flaps out now as we're taxiing down to the hold short. Finally, we got a nice landing. Finally. Simrate Bandit. Is that a plugin or something? Putting more reverse thrust in now as we get to the end of the runway. Don't want to wear down our brakes if we don't have to. You said Simrate Bandit. I don't know what that is. What's a Simrate Bandit? Is that a plugin? I don't know what voice tells you your Simrate in flight means. I don't know which voice. Okay, stop at the hold short. Announce our taxi. Sometimes you have to do it manually.
Uniform Hotel Bravo 1 traffic Pilatus Juliet Alpha 6867 is taxiing to runway 23.
What? No.
Uniform Hotel Bravo 1 traffic Pilatus Juliet Alpha 6867 is taxiing to parking.
That's better. Taxiing to runway. Definitely not. I can't remember what state my reverse throttles are in now. I don't think I turned them off. Oh, I might have. Let me just check. Oh, I have. Okay.
Home sweet home.
Parking brake and shut down. Let's see what we got paid. Just to recap, today in this video, if you're joining us late, you can watch the VOD. We covered all the basics of flying in the Cessna 172 to Glasgow. We did an ILS approach and a hilarious landing. We then covered a charter flight in the G2, and we flew into Southampton and had a bad frame rate landing. And then we flew the Pilatus PC-12 in a cargo flight somewhere in Asia. 97% integrity, 100% procedures because we flew VFR, 85% aircraft and S tier flight. That's a good way to end the stream. Let's see what it pays. There we go. Now they got rid of the commas for some reason in the latest update, But that is 1.2 million credits that we got for that flight. So if anybody's looking for how much you get paid for a Pilatus flight, if you do no skip and bad weather bonus, and you fly an S tier flight as well, so you get a reputation bonus as well, you can get 1.2. I have seen people get 1.4. That's probably the max I've seen people get in a medium cargo flight. So my reputation will now go up to S tier, so I'll get a bigger bonus next time. My level, 211, I don't know what that gets you because 90 is all you need to fly heavy cargo. Or sorry, super heavy cargo. Anyway, 211, why not? And I will look into that SimRate program called SimRate Bandit. With that, thank you very much everyone for joining me tonight. I hope that was helpful. I hope that's enabled you to start completing your own flights successfully. Don't learn from my bad FPS landings. So again, just maintain your descent speed and then throttle down, flare, nice touchdown, like we did in that last flight. With that, please do like and subscribe. Leave me comments on my videos if there's any other questions you have, and we'll do another live stream soon. Thanks for watching, and have a good weekend. Bye for now.